Sex therapists of Reddit, what do you wish more people knew? What are some of the more common or obscure things people have come to you with? I work in pelvic floor physical rehab. I'm on my phone, so I'll keep it short. Consider mental health if there is sexual dysfunction, whether ed or pain. Also consider physical health. Pelvic muscle weakness and/or tightness is also a thing in addition to overall health. It is not normal for there to be pain with after intercourse unless that's your thing. Many things can result in this happening, but it's not healthy. For men that have urogenital surgeries, prostate cancer, radiation, etc., it's very important to begin penile rehabilitation ASAP post-op and to be educated prior to treatment. Timing is very important for improved outcomes in treating erectile dysfunction after surgery. Also, incontinence is common after, but also can be improved with physical therapy. Many physicians don't know this treatment option is available. How feeling sexy comes from being sexy. So scheduled sex today can lead to delightfully spontaneous sex tomorrow. Too many people settle into the cold comfort of a minimally maintained relationship, and let the friendship and sexy side of a relationship wither. Schedule a date to go do something together. Agree to a time to have sex, and things usually do get better. As an aside, I provide counseling for sex offenders, so it would seem obvious that consent was never well explained to my clients. But what bakes my noodle is that I rarely meet people with a solid understanding of consent. I have one non-sex offender couple where the wife is coerced into having sex. He is threatening divorce and she would be deported if they got a divorce. It took 3 sessions for him to get it. I get it. I get it. A healthy relationship should have sex in it. I agree completely. But he's checked out of the relationship entirely outside of using her for a cook, a maid, and a sex object. It's not a healthy relationship and she feels she deserves better. I have to admit I agree. She can't be putting in all the work, and live in fear of what will happen if she just doesn't want to have sex. For me, it's a lot of trauma education. I see so many women and I know men experience sexual trauma and trauma as well. They just aren't a large part of my clientele who struggle in the bedroom with their spouses because of sexual abuse, trauma in their past. Once you can educate both parties how trauma like that affects you physically and mentally, you really start to see some growth. LCSW here. A couple thoughts from working with incredible teenage survivors. Sexual trauma can define you. If you're fine with that, that's fine. Lots of advocates allow their survivor status motivate them to help others. That sounds very honorable to me. For these people, their trauma and stories of healing can be very close to the surface. It is a fire within them, and others are lucky to experience their love and protection. It burns fiercely. It's also okay to forget about the trauma. It's normal in the healing process to confuse healing and repression. You may not be able to tell the difference sometimes, and that's okay. Your therapist may not be able to tell the difference sometimes, and that's okay, too. It's okay to place feelings on the shelf when they're inconvenient. It's okay to forget to keep your guard up. Remember when it helps. Forget when it helps. Oh, and this is important. Healing and growth start out as peaks and valleys and then become more stable in a slightly upward linear fashion, just barely above plateau. And then plateau happens. But it's supposed to happen. So just think of it like this. With anything, whether it's healing from sexual trauma or trying out your lover's kink for the first time, you're going to have good days and days when it doesn't go as planned. Those are the ups and downs. Just keep at it. The goal is not progress, the goal is continuing the effort. Healing and growth are sometimes so gradual as to not feel upwardly linear, but they are. That going deep too fast sometimes does not feel good. It feels like you're being punched in the cervix. I'm a marriage and family therapist who specializes in sexual and LGBT issues, although currently working primarily with children while I get my private practice off the ground in a new state. The first thing I tell many clients, and this is true about every relationship, be it partner, parent, child, friend, etc., is that a lot of future issues can be spared if you take the time to communicate your expectations of one another plainly. This is especially true and hardest to do regarding sex. Having expectations doesn't make you selfish or needy. It makes you a person. Sex is a big part of a relationship, and acknowledging its importance doesn't make you shallow. Furthermore, you are setting your partner up for failure and yourself up for disappointment if you are not making your expectations known. Making sure your expectations of one another are realistic, communicated effectively, and that each partner has a desire to meet them are all fundamental. The amount of people who come to me for sexual dysfunction is tiny compared to the amount of people who are having trouble effectively communicating with each other. So many guys are worried about premature ejaculation. Reality: PIV penis in vagina sex lasts typically 3 to 5 minutes. Lasting longer, needing to go longer is a myth. Reminder: PIV sex isn't all sex. Foreplay, oral sex and other activities mean sex can last hours, but the average time the penis is in the vagina thrusting is 3 to 5 minutes. Some studies say 4 to 6 minutes. Basically, if you're satisfied, there's nothing wrong with your sex life. 2 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever works best for you. We're taking averages. Also, time yourself. I used to swear it was 15 to 20 minutes. Actually, time 8 to 9 minutes. Sex can distort your perception of time. I have a lot of people asking, what if I can go for an hour plus but I can't orgasm? If you're unhappy with your inability to orgasm, there's a couple of things you can try to do. First, stimulation does not equal penetration, so try stimulation. Try only to start having sex when you're at 90 to 95%. Communicate with your partner, tell them you're trying to get off sooner. Promise them an orgasm even if you come first. Don't stress about being the first person to orgasm. There is a myth out there that you have to orgasm at the same time as your partner, but the reality is most partners aren't able to experience simultaneous orgasm. Especially if you're in a long-term relationship, it's okay to be a little selfish and pay attention to yourself as well as your partner. Sex education is seriously lacking across the board. I highly recommend Sexplanations on YouTube for a really good basis of sex and orgasms and how our bodies work. It's okay to seek out answers from therapists and doctors if you are unhappy with your sex life. Change something. 70% of women don't even get off from prick in puss. So going longer is just wasting everyone's time. Nuts are for busting, and beans are for flicking, is my mantra. Sex is like an oil change. It will not fix a broken relationship, but it is part of good maintenance. Both men and women, in talking about and beginning things regarding intimacy, require emotional bits. Not just women. This is a common misconception and can lead to some problems. If a loving, kind, supportive, and communicative relationship is the foundation, sex is going to be much easier and more comfortable and open. Communication is key, always. And when it isn't, there's usually some deep-seated problem that needs to be mended or at least addressed before a couple can move into a flourishing sexual partnership. A couple of comments are very helpful here, especially those regarding dry spells. I would like to add, however, that dry spells can become cycles, meaning, if a couple stops having sex because the husband becomes less emotionally available, as an example, a common one, a great fix for this can be sexual intimacy. But on the other side, if problems aren't taken care of, a sexual relationship can be a band-aid when surgery was needed. Erectile dysfunction is more common for young men than society thinks. Sildenafil, Viagra and other ED drugs are not only prescribed to old men. For couples with mismatched sex drives, which is the majority of couples, ask yourself whether or not, when you really get things going, you enjoy having sex. If the answer is yes, remind yourself of that when your partner makes advances. In a lot of cases you will find that you don't want to start having sex, not that you don't want to be having sex. Sex is just as mental as it is physical. Being in a good mood, with no stress in the back of your mind, having a good healthy meal that day and focusing on arousing thoughts and imagery consistently hours before sex or even longer. This will make your sex life better. Male, female, relationship, hookups. A satisfying relationship inside the bedroom starts outside the bedroom. I used to intern with therapists and they'd always stress the importance of communication. One of the therapists loved the 5 love languages, which I believe started as a book, but she'd tell them to take a free quiz online to figure out their love language. So many patients throughout the years would say how learning their love language helped save their relationships. I've personally found it incredibly beneficial as well. If nothing else, it opens the door for communication with your soul on what's important and meaningful to you, and that can lead to a much more satisfying sexual relationship.